Hi everyone. So today I am going down Sugarville Road because it's come up for me to work through this life theme with my son Hayden around food elimination diets, food intolerances, all of that in the early days, and how it can swing back to us with our tweens/teenagers as they get older and this stuff starts to rise up of the shadows of back here. So it started to come around. Hayden, turned around 10. And all of a sudden, he started going his own way with certain decisions. That's all cool. But it really became obvious with food. It was like, I'm going to go and have that. Whereas we have kept him very clean since he's been about 2 or 3. You can read the story at my website, heidihosking.com, in the About Me section. But yeah, to cut the long story short, me being a speech pathologist had my eye on him, seeing that he could get diagnosed easily with ASD, ADHD, all of that if I'd taken him to the pediatrician's office. But I was like, no, I've seen his light. He's a very, very bright boy. And so we went down the food path first, which is what many mums are doing, and really trying to work that through. And so we did, and to the point where we did it, like kinesiology every 2 weeks, to keep testing any food before we put it in his mouth, because it really set off that chain of events of behavior, issues in the daycare room because he was tiny, issues with us parents fighting on how to manage this behavior, me trying to say, hey, I'm pretty sure it's just the food talking through him, and rough with his brother, all of that stuff. It was Nightmareville. And so, of course, looking back, yeah, okay, I was a mum trying to work out how to go about things. But that did mean, because it's very sensitive, he'd eat a tiny teddy and he'd be off his face for 3 weeks and 5 days, which I'll talk to you about soon, and how we worked all that out. But the thing was, it was very, strict enough, but we basically made the diet that way. We went out to the right places. I made all the food that would support him and us. We ended up taking half of it on. And Hayden's ultimately led us to eating a whole lot cleaner and eating a whole lot better. But the interesting thing was, in our bubble of where we live, we had him clean, but we also had him in school. And so he saw another world, another paradigm of all the food that the other kids would have, treats, teachers bringing food in, all of that stuff. So he saw it. And so that's the interesting thing. So recently, it's becoming bigger and bigger of an issue with Hayden rolling his eyes at me and, oh, you want healthy food. I just want to go somewhere normal, and really pushing at me to do the inner work around it. It's very easy for us to come back to our children's monkey minds, to come out with our monkey mind to be like, oh, why are you being so rude and da 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 da. But really underneath that, we need to drop into our hearts first to pull our child back into their heart. So I was shipping around for how do I get into my heart? And of course, it always starts with the emotional body. With our 4 bodies that I teach in my inner work process, we always go back straight away to, how do you feel doing the life theme? I am a mum of a child who's treating me like this. Many mums are trying to work around the elephant in the room, trying to solve these issues without just facing, how do I feel about that? And dropping into your heart to go, oh, wow. And the more I did that, the more, because he would keep on going until it was like, nah, keep dropping in, get to the heart of the matter. And the heart of the matter was, I felt really upset and worried seeing our heart connection weaken. I felt really like, oh my gosh, all this effort that I've put into helping you, and now you're turning around and throwing it in my face. Just so many different things to see, to go, this is not fair. Like, you're treating your dad fine, but I'm the one that's done all the work to, get you into this path. Again, you can take it out externally on them, but it's really, I just need to process this heartache that's there. And all those emotions I've been clocking that whole time on this food journey. It was big. So I let all this stuff come up. And the thing is, I didn't really need to say too much more to Hayden, because really it actually wasn't so much to do with him. The next day, when I had really allowed this stuff to come up, it was in the middle of our holiday in the night, I was just up there going, no, I'm going to let this all out. He turned around the next day and he was great. Hi, mummy, love you. And I was like, yeah, I'm seeing through a different filter now. And so, of course, that inner charge that I did have isn't there. And so he literally is a different energetic puppet to me. So that was cool. So the thing is that we kept on going on, and then the next thing is, it was like, okay, I said to my husband, well, this is interesting. They really want to experiment with trying different treats, and the sugar world. what are we going to do? And I said, do you think it's nuts? Like, they've got this Halloween food on sale right now. Should we go and get them some stuff, or allow them to even use their own money to buy it? All of that. And it hit me. It was like, well, you know, they say it's so much better to start alcohol at home than allow them to go out and, you know, experiment. Why aren't we doing this now and allowing them to have this experiment while we're watching them, and trusting that they are wise beings, even at age 8 and 10, to come to their own conclusions? And I know this is not a new concept for a lot of mums. Like, yeah, I've been allowing my children free rein in doing that, allowing them to have that place. So the interesting thing is, I look at it in the bigger energetic place of the family unit. The family unit is always trying to seek balance. And so here we go, having, you know, my husband's probably pulled a bit this way into eating whatever. He used to be vegan and alcohol free and quite clean. But I have pulled quite clean, like cleaner, doing an Ayurvedic detox and whatnot. So the more I've pulled cleaner, the more my husband's just dropped off and gone, oh, well, I'll just go and have some drinks or whatever. So we've been going like this. Then here come our children like, yeah, we have done the clean side. Now we want to go the opposite way as well. And so I said that to my Hayden. I said, well, this is really interesting, because what's happened is we've gone so clean for so long. And then now, and Hayden picked it up. He said, yes, and now we're going to go this way. But the best thing would be sitting here in the middle. I was like, that's exactly it. Finding that balance in the middle. And so I explained to them, we've been in a world like this, where we have been experimenting with all sorts of clean diets and whatnot, but you have seen the other side. And so you naturally want to go, well, I want to experiment with that. Whereas, say, a family that's only been brought up in a clean community environment, where the children have only ever seen that food, well, they're playing balance within that. They haven't been in that wider bubble. That's what I see. And so it really is one of those things for us to accept. If I'm putting my children into school or with other families that have these different types of food, well, we virtually have to go with that, to go, well, yeah, they're clocking that curiosity every time that they see these other different foods. So who are we to say, no, we're going to keep you over here? And while we do that, ping, and of course it goes back the other way. So we did. We let them use their money. You go by what really floats your boat. We talked about it. Are you more sugar? Are you more chocolate? You know, what's in what? It was very interesting to see my control. My monkey mind still wanted to say, you know, but this ingredient's list is a whole lot better. Do you want to go this way? All that, you know, even money, value for money, which one's what? But to really just spread it out and say, this is what it is, and then go. So they came home with a bag of 25 Chupa Chups each. And again, it rose more stuff. There was already fights of silly stuff going on between them and whatnot. And I was like, oh, here we go. The energies come into our house. And it's not to say, well, that's right, let's just get rid of it. It's more like, okay, it's prodding this stuff that needs to come out of us. That's what it's doing. The shadows are actually helping us to face the shadows and bring this stuff back out. So played it out. I watched myself wanting to say, so now you've got 25. Do you think about 2 a week would be good? That was my main thing. I could hear myself wanting to say it. But the more we catch ourselves as mums doing the gentle, sneaky control of, I'm just going to push you this way and I'm still going to let you have it, but I'm going to control this. And so instead I was shipping around, how can I come from my heart with this? I don't want them to just have open slather, because that's going too far with no boundaries. So I spoke from my heart, and this is the heart-to-heart parenting thing. I said to them, I feel panicky. I don't feel good in seeing you have all that sugar and seeing what it might do to your beautiful bodies. Now, if we talk up here from our mind, they go, oh yeah, great. And they go and do their thing. But what I did was I really dug for it. I expressed, this is really hard. And I said to them, you've been brought up so clean. I've put in so much effort. Do you know what I've done? And not in a, do you know what I've done mode, but more so, do you realize, you know, I said to my hand, do you realize the behaviors that you used to have when you'd even just a little bit? I'm having sharp music right now because you're going to eat this much. And you used to have a little bit. 3 weeks, 5 days later, you would come out of it. And he's like, what do you mean? I said, well, you'd only need to eat a tiny teddy off the floor at daycare. And luckily, we had you on a clean diet otherwise. So we could really see how long does it take your body to process that tiny teddy out until you'd come back to us. And he's like, what do you mean? I said, well, you'd eat that and you'd literally, your brain would go like this and would be like, Hayden, Hayden, look at me, look at me. I'd start saying a sentence and you could see he was gone 3 words in. Hayden, trying to get his attention. He'd be rough. You'd be like, oh no, you know, brother's just done something. The whole time we were on edge like this. And he was like, oh, wow. And especially when we tell stories about our children, they're interested, like, really? And he was like, wow. And you could just see he dropped into his heart. I had him there. And so really went with that. And of course, big emotions came up and I showed them. A lot of mums are like, oh, I can't show my emotions in front of my children. No, you need to, because they were like, oh, wow. And so they give me hugs and whatnot. And I said, no, I need to tell this story. It's there now. I want to express it. So it's been heard. And I said to them, I used to dread it because the daycare ladies knew what stress we were under when you were on something, some food you shouldn't be. They'd say, I'm sorry, Heidi, he's just eaten, you know, like a piece of dried pasta that they used to thread, you know, soaked in some color. We're so sorry. And I'll be like, no. But and Hayden said, how did you work this out? And I said, I don't know. Obviously, I was in tune enough and I dreaded it. I absolutely dreaded it because our family was, you know, hanging on by a loose thread. You know, Anthony and I fighting about how to deal with him and the money situation of trying to put on these new, you know, diets and all of this. There was just so much stress there. And he was like, oh, wow. And I said, so I was hanging on to anything. And one day you woke up and you were like, hi, mummy. And then, you know, something would happen with brother and be like this. And then he'd be like, oh, I think I'm okay about that. And walk off and say something reasonably like, oh, and he'd sit down and play for half an hour straight instead of basically rolling around, not being able to do much good with himself because his brain was fried. And I said to him, it was like we lost you. You were gone. And then the day when you would say, hi, mummy, I come back, it was basically like I counted it and then it happened again. So I said, well, let's see, because we're hanging on to, okay, 3 weeks and 5 days. But as I was really crying and letting this out to him, I said, it's hard to remember that your child is still of light 3 weeks into this period to go, oh, I'm ready to kill him. I dread him. I'm sick of this. Everyone's ready to go nuts. And you start to really hear other people suggesting, do you think you want to go get a diagnosis? And how's he going to go at school? And you really start to fall into that trap of fear about your child. And so that was the main part. Thank goodness we had that 3 weeks and 5 days, and we had worked hard by going to the kinesiologist to make sure we had the foods that really suited him right so we could come back to it. But by expressing all of this, and we talked about lots of things. He brought up, you know, I don't like, because I said, oh, you know, someone suggested we make, you know, homemade gummy lollies, and we all had a laugh because I'm like, oh, I used to do those. And of course they are way too natural for my children's desire right now to go into the darkness. And he said, I hate jelly now because you made them for my birthday one time at school and all the kids chucked them in the bin because they didn't like them. And so we let it all out again, the shame, the embarrassment, the effort, all of that, the stuff I did with my heart. And that's it, is just piecing it through to go, I was doing so much from my heart. But in the essence of that, we really have to sit with, am I doing it from my heart or was I doing it from a place of fear? And I was doing a lot of it from a place of fear. My child's going to miss out, so I better go make something amazing. I'm so tired and stressed, but I'm going to make this anyway. And that's the tricky part, is that's why the shadows come back to us, because a lot of it is done in shadows, unfortunately, especially when we're not in tune with our child's highest alignment of how to get their behaviors flowing in a better way, rather than just following a medical path, the dietitian, you know, whoever else suggests these diets and whatnot. That's the tricky part. But again, no judgment, because really, half of us, I still look back and go, I would probably still do that path again to pull him out of that early phase of when he really was getting his name for himself, you know, what do you call it? Understanding his own energy and who he is. There was a lot of time when he was 2 and 3, when he was off his face in that 3 weeks, 5 days period, where he was clocking himself as a rough child, a naughty child, I can't do much with myself child. And then he would have, you know, sometimes only 2 weeks before the next bit of food he'd eat. And then he would come back to, I'm a really sweet, sensitive, loving, very bright, you know, lots of great things about him. He was trying that on for size. So yeah, you wouldn't change the path necessarily, but what I do help mums with now is to start to see, where is this mother-child healing stuff? How can I get onto that quicker? Because that is the stuff that really unravels everything back to the point where I started to stop freaking myself out, and go, okay, he could have some sourdough, and maybe if he does anything not so great, so shadowy behaviors after, what if it wasn't to do with the food? What if it was him reacting to something that I'd said or dad said or something else? And why are we putting all this all on food? Some of it, yes, and some of it maybe not. And so there's always that grayness in between to go, yeah, he mostly stays off gluten, but we found kamut, a nice ancient grain sourdough that he's quite happy with, and it's fine. He can have oats now, and it's fine. He can have, you know, a lolly that has wheat syrup in it, and he's okay. So that's the bit to start to play with. Where is my fear coming in? And I'm like, because, and I will say this as one of the final stories, what I learned from our kinesiologist in the end, after a long time, we would take foods in, he would put it up to Hayden, he'd test. And at first, Hayden would test fine with a certain food. And then he said, well, let's just get Hayden to eat it and we'll test again. Once Hayden was eating it, weak. And he basically hinted to me, his body is picking up on your reaction of him eating it. And so it's sensing that stress. And so that food is going down a completely different way. And it's been one of the biggest golden keys for my whole path and downloading all these messages, is to really see energy matters, and how we are sitting with our fears is how our children react, what they say, what they do, what they believe about themselves, in all sorts of ways that we can't really imagine until we start looking at it in a, you know, in a bigger light. That's the main thing. So in saying that, that's the sugar story. We've gone from one place, we're going to the other. The interesting thing is, when I saw I was pulling quite far out into the cleaner side, and then my husband, I've been aware of it's pulling the other way. It's like the universe is saying, here's the yin and yang. You're pulling to the edges now. What are you going to do? You can sit on the edges, but you start to lose connection as partners even. And that's where it was like, okay, what can we do to come back in? I don't want to go fully over the other side either, but finding that balance. And that's the unperfect path, not going so clean and not going so dirty, but finding that perfect path where there is reasons to be here and not doing the perfect path either. So for example, when we went on a holiday recently, I could have been like, well, I can't eat there because nothing suits me. I can't eat there. That won't suit me. But I ended up, you know, dabbling and having a bit of this and that. The interesting thing is my body didn't go well with it. I got the tension all around the neck, got really, and then we also, all of us, I will admit it more so than other family members, are a bit like, oh, what could we be bothered to do kind of energy. The light side of that was the universe was trying to say, you guys all just need to chill out, stop trying to get up and do stuff. So we had to have a brain fog to do that. So that was the interesting part. But then for me, it's been like, okay, what can I do to flow my energy? And when I brought up all these emotions, because it all happened at once, which is no coincidence either, the sugar had helped me to lean into those emotional weeds and pull them out by the roots of my Hayden and what we'd been through, to the point where once I flowed this emotion, a lot of the symptoms of sugar actually were gone. And so you go, is it the sugar that's actually that bad? Or is it just that we need to keep flowing our energy, flowing those old emotions that a lot of us are trying to keep trapped in there? So don't question yourself so much if you are feeling called to the sugar stuff, but do play out your inner work. Allow it to work for you. Go into your emotional body. Get that stress out. Feel it. Feel disgusting. Go into the shadows and pull that stuff out, because boom, you will come back to the other side, which is what I have done, to the point where I look at it and go, wow, you know, it's not the end of it, but I have literally taken me and my Hayden on a different trajectory out into the future already than if I hadn't have done that inner work and I had just let it fester. It can go like this, where your children grow away from you because it just keeps going. And we crust our hearts. I would have crusted mine to protect my emotions, him the same. And it's just like, and we start looking at each other and on and on and on and on and on. That's what we don't want. And the teenage stuff is, you know, a clear example of that, or tweens, children's shadows from the past and all that emotion they've swallowed down with us controlling them, coming back up at us. And if we go, oh, it's just teenage, we're missing the point. They're there saying, will you help me? Let all this old stuff out. Will you look at yourself and how we played this out? Look at yourself with love, like I have, to go, hey, I did an amazing job. Look at all the light things that have happened, but yeah, let me honor my own self and what I went through and the emotions there. And of course, we're on a much higher trajectory, which is so cool. So that's my rundown. But of course, you can do this with any life theme that comes up with you. Give it a go. Obviously, I mostly talked about the emotional body, but of course, there's the mental body and what do I visualize for myself and my child, for example. How are we going forth? I'm really focusing on what am I wanting to create a good relationship rather than the, oh, you're being a pain with your behaviors. Physical body, where you hold it in your body, and that spiritual body. What is my child getting me to come to, getting me to awaken to, change, empower? That's the spiritual body. What is going on here? Why are they showing up like this? What's the thing that I'm getting out of? So if you like this, head to my website, HeidiHosking.com. You can subscribe here. You can follow me on Facebook, Instagram. I do even send out emails. You can sign up for any courses. I do have them kind of coming here and there. I've got one currently about to start now, Empowered Mothers course, which is exactly about this inner work process and being able to make magic out of your challenges, whatever they are, not just your children's, partner, life, family, your work, whatever it is. You can blow this stuff up with whatever's coming at you. Otherwise, I hope you've enjoyed this, and let me know if you'd like any other topics to be talked on. Bye.